Front row, Davy Evans in car number 932, 1982 world champion. He's on the inside. Alongside him, 351 Barry Lee, 4 times world champion alongside him. As they come off the bend now, and the green flag goes down, and this is it. There's 60 laps to come to determine this John Player International. Now, is it going to be England, as it's been in the heats? I beg your pardon, is it going to be Ireland, as it's been in the heats? Or is it going to be England that can fight back? Well, if the start's anything to go by, that's pretty even, because it's Davy Evans only just ahead of Barry Lee. Look at the speed of that Davy Evans car as he accelerates away from Barry Lee. One of the few drivers to use a Chevette. Barry Lee, of course, in his total Ford. The rest of them further back. The English drivers know they've really got to go some in this, because in the first 8 places on the grid there are in fact 5 Irishmen. 932, Davy Evans the leader. His compatriot Ormond Christie is right behind him. So that's the leader, and as we come a little wider, you can see exactly the margin between them. Oh, a little bit of team racing here now, side by side for the Irishman. And Ormond decides to take it up. 962, Ormond Christie the leader. 932, Davy Evans is with him. 351, Barry Lee is tucked in behind. Further back, we've got 95, Andy Dance. 88 is Peter Dreimer, but this is the leading group. Ormond Christie in 962, absolutely revelling in the wet here. Ormond going well, looking confident. Barry Lee now upsides of the Davy Evans car, moving in fact into second place, but certainly momentarily anyway. That shows you the margin now. Ormond Christie on the right in 962, pulling away from Barry Lee in 351, and Davy Evans in 3rd place, trying to stay indeed with Barry Lee. And as we look at that little back group there, we'll see that the other placemen are not that far behind. Ormond Christie is now clearing the front in this one, 962. And behind him it's still Barry Lee in 351. There's Barry. A little bit of margin now between him and the one in front and the one behind. Things beginning to open up a little. .962, Ormond Christie. 351, Barry Lee. 932, Davy Evans is 3rd. 156, Stu Jackson comes next. Then 242, Pete Stevens. Then 915, Leslie Dallas. Then 306, George Polly. Number 8, Paul Dreimer. 979, Richard Turtle. That's the full order now of about the first 7 places. But at the moment, it's Ormond Christie for Ireland who leads. Barry Lee for England. There's Ormond Christie, the leader. And as I said, the gap indeed is now beginning to widen. This man is the leader. And we can see in a moment the gap is now coming. There's 351, Barry Lee coming through in 2nd place. That's the leader. There's Barry Lee now as they come through. There's the 3rd, and then the 4th, 5th. On the inside of those 2, or the 2nd of those 2, is the next place. Now that's the sort of gap now we've got. The field a little spread out. The front 2 places some way clear of the rest, but the field is beginning to close up on the rest of them. So that's 962. Still behind him is 351 Barry Lee. Barry Lee, of course, a former European Rallycross champion before he came to hot rod racing. This is the man who's in 3rd place currently, Norman Woolsey. Car number 950, and he's not too far behind Barry Lee, in fact, now. And as they come through, we can see that, in fact, the next raceman are only a relatively few yards behind them now. It seems as if the rest of the field is beginning to close in on the leaders as a whole. That's the man they're all chasing. That's the man they've all got to beat. Of course, this race is to be decided on points, on this race alone. So we shall have to do some calculations after they've gone over the line to see who's actually won this international match. But the 16 points from the first man over the line will certainly be a great advantage to the Northern Ireland team. George Pollien now has moved up, indeed, into 4th place. George Pollien going much better after that mishap in the very first heat, but he's still got a long way to go to catch Ormond Christie. As we look at the lap sheets, we're now just coming onto the halfway stage. Still looking cool and calm and confident. And the rest of them still sweating to decide whether they can catch him or not. Ormond now picking his way through some of the slower back markers, hoping that none of them are going to do anything silly just in front of him. Coming past Richard Turkle in 9.79. Local lad driving on his home track. That doesn't stop the former world champion from sweeping past him. So there he is. .962. Past Andrew Dance, one of the English drivers. A bit of a scrap now as George Pollien comes into contention for 2nd place. 9.60 there is Adrian Christie, a back marker from the Irish team. But the other two cars are well and truly in this. 3.51 on the outside there. On the right is Barry Lee, is 2nd. And 3.06, his English teammate, is in the next position. So things are beginning to warm up for the places. 3.51, Barry Lee under real pressure now from 3.06, George Pollien. And it looks as if George here has got the inside berth and looking set to move up into 2nd place. Maybe he can catch Ormond where Barry couldn't. Indeed, he swept past very confidently. And in a moment or two, Ormond Christie will be looking in his mirror and wondering suddenly where George Pollien has come from. George, in fact, look, opening the gap on Barry Lee. So maybe there's going to be a scrap for the lead after all. Certainly it was beginning to look as if the Irishman was going to run away with it, although, let's face it, there is still a long way to go. 35 laps have gone. That's the man they're chasing. And he's got a lead now about 1/3 of a lap on this Ballymena Raceway. Ormond Christie, still there, still going well, still confident. 3.06. George Pollien trying hard to catch him, and little by little he's definitely whittling down the difference between them. Now, is the 9.03 car there of Robin Sloane going to hold him up? Perhaps Robin Sloane doesn't appreciate the significance of the fact that George is chasing hard behind Ormond Christie. He needs to get past quickly. He can't afford to wait too many laps to pass these slower back marker cars. George, your driver, that's never worried about having a go on the outside, just hoping, of course, the man on the inside doesn't drift wide and take him to the fence. Ormond Christie coming past the back marker number 8 car of Paul Grimer. Still the Irishman with a very comfortable lead, but I think that the two Englishmen, 3.06 George Pollien and 3.51 Barry Lee, are definitely closing the gap little by little. The question will be, will there be enough time? Just coming to 40 laps gone now, 20 more to go. Well, a lot can happen in 20 laps. But are they going to be good enough to catch Ormond Christie? Well, it certainly won't be for lack of trying on the part of George Pollien. George Pollien, a driver who's tried quite a lot of forms of motorsport. Started off in stock cars, progressed through to the hot rods, and of course won the World Championship at Ipswich in 1976. Barry Lee there, World Champion in 1973, 1974, 1977 and 1978, won most of the other honours in the sport. So he certainly knows what he's doing. Now whether the combined skill and experience of those two drivers is going to be enough to overcome Ormond Christie remains to be seen, because Ormond is not lacking in experience. He started racing in 1971 in stock cars and moved on to hot rods in 1977. And certainly it was a surprise to many people in the world of hot rod racing when in fact he won that world title just a couple of years ago. And I can see in fact the 950 car that was going so well in 3rd place for a long time, Norman Woolsey, is now out against the fence, and that's the end of the race for him. So it's still 962 Ormond Christie, and there he is. That's the end of the race. for Norman Woolsey, I'm afraid. A man who's been racing for a long time, and his race is now over for today. Back now to the scrap. These are some of the placemen, that's the leader. And now the lead that Ormond Christie has got is down to about a quarter of a lap, but that is still a lot for this man to get rid of. George Polly slowly going past the back markers, picking them off patiently. 351 Barry Lee on the right of the picture here in the next place. Session there, a couple of a little bit of touching there, which is not really legal. A non-contact formula, hot rod racing. When they get congested like that, everyone is eager to look for a gap, a chance to go by, because the chances are few and far between. Norman Christie hasn't got that trouble. He's got a fairly clear run at the moment. He's fairly well in the lead. Barry Lee patiently working away, still there in third place. So as we look at the lap sheets, coming now towards 50 laps, time is running out for the English team. There's two more back markers disposed of by Barry Lee. There's the leader now. He's got a group of back markers, and George Polly maybe got a chance here to close up, but no, Ormond Christie quickly gets past the slower cars. That's the one thing, of course, that can really whittle down the lead very quickly. You spend a couple of laps stuck behind a batch of slow-moving back marker cars, and a quarter of a lap lead can be down to nothing before you know where you are. Barry Lee getting past 9:32 Davy Evans, trying very hard further back, while Ormond Christie weaves his way through the slower cars. At the moment he's not being too badly held up. But Barry Lee is gaining, but I don't think he's gaining enough to make it conclusive. 51 laps have gone. Richard Turtle being lapped once again in 9.79. Ormond finding his way past those slower cars very well. His experience on the Ballymena Raceway obviously standing him in good stead. Knows his way around. He's not afraid to go on the outside. A beautiful racing surface here, very consistent, no enormous bumps to suddenly throw you off course. Barry Lee having a real tussle here with Davy Evans, 1982 world champion and 4 times former world champion there, side by side. Still, the question really is, can Ormond Christie in 9.62 hold on to this very comfortable lead that he has accumulated? And can 306 George Polly catch him? And as each lap goes by, the answer to that, the question must become more and more, no, he can't be caught. I think barring him getting into some real trouble, barring the engine blowing, he just isn't going to be caught now. There's 5 more laps to go. George Polly must be now despairing of making that distance between him and the leader any less. Quiet man by nature, cool, calm and confident, knowing that he's got that lead. Still a little over a quarter of a lap. As he comes off the bend, he can look out of the window of his car and look across to the start of the bend and see the only opposition to him is some way back. And knowing that the laps are running out, he can be confident that all he's got to do now is to keep going to pick up that first place for the Irish team. Barry Lee back in now about 4th place, just behind 9.32. In fact, the order is 9.62 Ormond Christie, 3.06 George Polly, 9.32 Davy Evans, 3.51 Barry Lee, and 1.56 Stu Jackson. Those are the first places. Checkered flag at the ready now as they come through. It's going to be a win for Ireland anyway. Ormond Christie is going to take it. Round he comes. Not far away. away now. That's it. There's the flag. So that's the first few points in the bag. 3:06, George Polly goes over the line second. And as the rest of the placemen are going to come funneling through, it's going to be 9:32, Davy Evans. It's going to be 3:51, Barry Lee is next. And in a moment or two, we'll get the rest of the placings, work out the points and see who has won. But nothing can detract from the great win in the actual race itself for Northern Ireland by 9:62, former world champion Ormond Christie.
Difficult conditions at Ballymena. It was confirmed eventually that although the Irishman was first across the line, England won the team event by 68 points to 65.